Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hounds, and for this video we're going to be looking at 10 of the silliest movie monsters to grace the screen. There's lots more silly movie monsters out there, depends how far down the barrel you want to go, but this is 10 of the ones that immediately come to mind for me as being particularly silly creatures in horror movies. And I should preface as well that I don't necessarily dislike many of these movie monsters. In fact, the sillier the better for me. But by nature of this video, I will go into a few reasons as what makes them so kind of silly and laughable. So, 10 of the silliest movie monsters to ever grace the horror genre. Let's get straight into it. First up, we have the Killer Tomatoes from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes from 1978. Now, I'm all for inanimate, unlikely objects coming to life and posing as a threat in horror films. I get a great degree of entertainment seeing these small, unlikely things rising up and killing full-grown adults who really should fare better. But Killer Tomatoes, it's a bit of a stretch when you see these kind of entirely inoffensive, somewhat gelatinous pieces of fruit, because they are a fruit apparently, they've got seeds. But yeah, seeing these pieces of fruit kind of just rolling around, doing nothing, and just acting like the inanimate pieces of food that they are. It's difficult to entertain the notion of those being these killer creatures. Really, you're just looking at the events in the movie thinking just step on them and squish them and you'll all be fine. But yeah, Killer Tomatoes, it's obviously played out as a horror comedy. It probably leans more towards the comedy side, to be honest. And this one, it does have a bit of a cult following, but it's not a movie I'm actually all that fond of. The humour in this one doesn't quite land for me. It's very kind of slapstick visual humour presented in a very sort of quick fire way, somewhat reminiscent to Airplane, but the jokes didn't quite land as much in this one as they did in that movie. But I do, as I say, I love the concept, and you know, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is always going to be a movie that I watch regardless of how good or how cheesy it is. But humour aside, in this movie, check out the helicopter crash in this one, which was actually a mistake. The helicopter crashed for real. Fortunately, nobody was injured, but it did take up about half of the film's budget to work around that. But it's always an interesting scene to see that kind of uncomfortably dangerous event take place in such a silly throwaway movie. But yeah, back to the silliest movie monsters. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is right up there. As I say, just step on the things and you'll be fine. Next up we have Evil Bong from 2006. From Full Moon, whose bread and butter is giving us a number of silly small creatures and unleashing them on the world. But Evil Bong, again, it's a massive stretch for me to see something without any arms and legs or limbs at all being presented as the antagonistic threat in this movie. I don't actually remember too much of the film. It's just always stayed with me that it's got one of the most ridiculous premises centered around this Evil Bong. And although I don't remember it, I'm going to go out on a limb here and just surmise what the movie was about. You've got like these two stoners hanging out in this room, and there's an evil bong from it's from a different dimension or something like that, or it's possessed by some evil, and it's got like an eyes and mouth and starts talking to them and does a number of nefarious and dastardly things. Yeah, all, like I say, extremely silly and a massive stretch of anyone's imagination to see another inanimate object causing so much trouble to full-grown adults. But credit to Full Moon, they've turned Evil Bong into quite a lengthy franchise now. It's got numerous sequels and has even got a Evil Bong kind of versus this and that spin-off. So credit to Full Moon for stretching this one out. I would not have expected Evil Bong to have generated so many sequels. Next up we have Zombievers from 2014. Zombie Beavers. And in this one, the zombie beavers, they attack these highly strung high schoolers that are staying in this cabin by the lake and cause all kind of mayhem. But I do quite like this one because the zombie beavers are caused by these toxic waste canisters that have been dumped in the lake. And I do have a soft spot for anything that's generated by toxic waste. I have no idea why. I just find that plot device very appealing. And something else that I think is quite good about Zombievers, despite the rather ludicrous plot in this one, is it's got some really good practical effects. The zombie beavers in this look really good, and they are operated really well and actually look quite convincing for the movie. So yeah, this one is a pretty entertaining one. This is like take your brain out, invite some friends over, and just have a laugh at the crazy stuff that goes on with these zombievers attacking these brainless high schoolers. So there is a lot of entertainment to be had in this one, but of course, zombie beavers, not many people are ever going to take that one seriously. Next up, we have The Giant Claw from 1957. One of the many wonderful monster movies from the 1950s. This one sees this giant flying monster descend upon the city and cause a whole lot of terror and panic. And this monster would kind of be impressive if it didn't look so gosh darn goofy. It has such a comical look on its face. It looks like it's more confused about its surroundings than dead set on destroying everything in sight. Not only that, but you can obviously see that this is a puppet being operated by strings. Its wings are clumsily batting up and down. It's all kind of out of sorts and doesn't really have any kind of physiological convincing elements about it, to be honest. It just kind of hangs there looking rather silly with, like I say, the really sort of goofy looking look on its face. But this is a really entertaining movie, probably for all the wrong reasons, but it's one of those films where I don't know how somebody can't see the monster and just smile with how ridiculous it looks. So there is fun to be had here with The Giant Claw. Next up, we have a monster from a seriously good horror film, but I wanted to include this one. This is I think they call it The Engineer, which is the monster in the corridor in Hellraiser from 1987. I struggled to find any kind of decent pictures of this one. But Hellraiser, as I say, it's such a great horror film, and the Cenobites in this are incredible. They're portrayed fantastically well, great performances. They are kind of captivating and mysterious. There's a lot of ambiguity about whether they're evil or not. And they just have a certain kind of intellectual superiority, which is fascinating and quite unusual in like the world of horror like this. So this monster in the corridor, it's the scene where Kirsty, she's in a hospital and it all opens up and it kind of chases her down the corridor. But it's sort of just suspended from the ceiling and it's just sort of like arms and legs coming after her. I just thought it was a bit too a bit too basic, if you like, for the world of the Cenobites. It just didn't really bring anything and just seemed like a real sort of silly B-movie monster moment in what was otherwise a very effectively intelligent horror film. Not that I'm criticising it, like I say, the sillier, the more B-movie the monster, the more I'm up for it. It's just that monster in the corridor of that film has always struck me as being kind of a little bit lacking in a movie that was just almost perfect in every way. And it's kind of always just stayed, that monster's always stayed with me, I guess for the wrong reasons, although it does look cool. So yeah, that monster in the corridor I just always thought it was a bit of a step down in terms of the Cenobites when it came to Hellraiser. Next up, we have the Hobgoblins from 1988. And oh my goodness, so we had a number of Gremlins rip-offs. Some were okay, some were fun, but Hobgoblins has got to be one of the worst. So the Hobgoblin monsters in this, they are just kind of like hand puppets. And not only that, they are really unconvincing looking. They have kind of like no points of articulation. Their mouths hardly move. They are pretty much like kids' soft toys just being presented on the screen. We're supposed to find them threatening, I guess. Not only that, they then have this kind of other sort of power where they can make things, they can make people's like desires sort of manifest in front of them, which just convoluted and already sort of problematic film and just doesn't add anything to it. So yeah, Hobgoblins completely uninspired. It's a real chore to get through this one, and it's a shame because Hobgoblins is a film that in my mind I think I should like this, and even looking up this movie again for this video and getting some pictures of it and things, I was like, this movie does look awesome, but no, it's one that I always think is good, and then I return to it and I'm reminded why this movie stinks so much. It's such a bad, probably the worst of the Gremlins rip-offs, with some of the worst looking creatures in this one. They're really bad. So yeah, Hobgoblins, terrible in every way, but in particular the monsters are just so lousy and cheap looking. Yeah, it's not a good one. Next up we have It Conquered the World from 1956. I'm not sure about it conquering the world. It looks like it would struggle to conquer the floor in front of it. It's a very strangely designed alien creature. It has a sort of a flat base bottom, which would render it almost impossible to get over any kind of uneven surface. And if it faced a flight of stairs, it would be game over entirely. So how they quite thought this one would succeed in global domination, I'm not quite sure. Furthermore to that, it does spend most of the time in a cave, so again, it's not exactly out there taking over anywhere. It does show itself towards the end of the film and sort of lurches out of the cave and tries to be threatening in front of the soldiers that are trying to stop it. But yeah, there's you can't get around the fact that yeah, should it face any kind of incline or decline, it's going to struggle. Having said that, this is a really entertaining film. I do love It Conquered the World. It's a very fun one from the 1950s, and like I say, if you can look past that questionable alien design, there is a lot of entertainment to be had here, and it is a really cool creature. It sounds like I've been quite harsh on it in this video, but I do love the look of the alien in It Conquered the World. It would make a really cool action figure, actually. I just don't see it conquering the world anytime soon, unfortunately. Next up we have the tree monster from Hell It Came from 1957. This one we see this sort of tribesman. He's reincarnated as a killer tree stump. Yes, a killer tree stump. And it's kind of as hindering as what you'd imagine. It's this big lumbering kind of tree stump monster. Very few points of articulation, the same almost disgruntled look on his face throughout the whole film. He sort of does very little other than sort of carry this poor actress around. So it's another one of those films where I wonder how they expected him to do anything or really cause any kind of trouble or death and destruction. But yeah, he just sort of clumsily shuffles around the movie after being resurrected as this killer tree. One would almost think that he's had a bit of a raw deal if that's what he's come back as. But yeah, that is what we're faced with in From Hell It Came, a killer tree stump. But again, it's a wonderful film. I do love this one. It's great sort of like Sunday morning entertainment, and I do think the monster is great and really cool looking, despite it's the silly idea behind it. So yeah, From Hell It Came, one I don't hear people talk about too often, but if you do like your 1950s monster movies, you may certainly want to check this one out, but don't be expecting too many intricate scenes with the monster in question in this one. Next up we have The Monsters from Island of Terror from 1966. Really awesome British horror film with Peter Cushing. This one sees these three doctors on this remote island. They're investigating some mysterious deaths, and they find that it's the result of this sort of plant-like life form, and these creatures that are going around killing people. And it's kind of a cool concept, and they look pretty okay. But the thing about this one is you can just so tell that they're sort of like vacuum cleaners that have been done up to look like these plant-like monsters. They move around very clumsily, you know, as if being operated like a vacuum cleaner would. And it does take away from what is quite I don't know, kind of a scary idea, I guess, of this new life form killing people off. But so yeah, it's a film, it plays out really well. It's got some quite good eerie atmosphere. I like the remote island setting, but as soon as kind of you lay eyes on these sort of vacuum cleaner plant monsters, a lot of the scariness kind of goes out the window, which is not a problem for me because I do love seeing them, and I'm always an advocate for getting the monster out there on screen. But I challenge anyone not to kind of see these monsters for what they really are underneath all the prosthetics and the horror makeup. And lastly, on this video of some of the silliest movie monsters you'll see, we have Evil Toons from 1991. This one is a very enjoyable movie, very kind of its time. We see this this group of sorority sisters. They are renovating this big spooky house, and they somehow invoke these demon creatures, but they're entirely animated. They are like these cartoon monsters that cause all this trouble, and spend most of the time kind of leering over the women, to be honest. It's a very B-movie-ish. I love it, but as I say, very much of its time. It does have some good people in it. David Carradine's in it. Dick Miller pops up in this one, so really fun to see them. And I mean, you see the monsters. It's impossible to look at this one and take it seriously. You kind of know what you're in for when you see this kind of stuff. But I did like kind of the mix of real life and animation coming together. You don't see that all that much in this kind of fashion, particularly in horror. So they did have a little bit of a unique kind of approach to this one. But yeah, it is crazy and just plays out in the completely cartoonish way that you would expect. So yeah, really fun film, but almost impossible to take seriously. So there we go, guys. That is 10 of the silliest movie monsters you'll see on screen. Let me know what you think about that list. Let me know which ones you think are silly. There's plenty more out there, and I'd love to hear what you think when it comes to this kind of thing. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.